for our YouTube viewers, we now have a graphic of Fantasy Football Hub's fixture ticker, which you can view any way you want at fantasyfootballhub.co.uk for yourself. It confirms the fixtures for game weeks 20 to 23. So the next 4 game weeks, which we'll do every week now, we will focus on the next 4 game weeks and look at the best teams and player picks. So top of the shop by quite a distance, actually, Newcastle have actually got the best 4 fixtures according to the ticker. They're home to Leeds, away to Everton, home to Palace, away to Southampton, then Palace, Fulham a third, then Everton, then Leicester. Nothing massively exciting in those teams, though we have picked out a few players to have a look at right down the bottom. So Liverpool's next 4 fixtures, we just talked about maybe holding on to Salah, Robertson, etc. Liverpool's next 4, they're away to Spurs, they're away to West Ham, they're home to Brighton, and then they're home to Man City. So also Burnley's fixtures are quite tight, along with Arsenal as well. But for those ones up at the top, Adam, what are your thoughts on on the fixtures for the next 4 game week? Which teams are you looking at targeting and getting rid of?
I think at the moment, literally anybody could beat anybody, which is the beauty of the league. And so therefore, I look at Liverpool's fixtures. I don't think they're as bad as they look on there. I think West Ham and Brighton they can potentially get something from. I even think away at Spurs, it wouldn't surprise me if Liverpool went there and got something. So I don't think their fixtures are as bad as it looks. And plus, if you sell Salah or Mane, what are you going to do with the money?
That's a fair point.
And is there really? I just don't think there's any. I don't know if that's worth a transfer. Let's have a look at the fixtures. I think I like Leicester's fixtures, but then they haven't got Vardy. How will they be impacted? Everton's fixtures are quite nice, and Calvert-Lewin's back, and Luca Dean's back in the side. James Rodriguez. Could we see a revival there? Possibly. I think United's fixtures are quite nice, but I think especially from a defensive point of view, so Sheffield United and Southampton in the next 2 have both been struggling for goals. So yeah, there's quite. I look at Villa's pictures on paper are quite good as well. So I think there's quite a bit in there.
What do you think on how Leicester will perform without Vardy? Obviously, Maddison's been playing really, really well. He's kind of signalled his intent the other day, on TV about he wants to get in more positions, he wants to score more goals. Harvey Barnes, I think, has started the last 7 or so as well. Obviously, Vardy's runs and the way he plays gives them a lot of room. Do you think that someone like Perez or Iheanacho will give them that same kind of freedom? They've got the fixtures, I think, especially Leeds in 21. What are your thoughts?
I think if they go with a false 9, which they tried in one of the matches, I think it was in one of the cup matches. If they go with a false 9, I think they play Perez there. I think they could do okay. I think if they go with Iheanacho, I think he's just flattered to deceive too many times. So I think if they go with the false 9, they've got a lot of good players. It could actually give them a chance to another attacking player. So Perez who's looked good in spells.
Yes, that's right, yeah.
So they've got to replace Vardy at some point. I think the pleasing thing probably for Brendan Rodgers is that defensively, they're looking really good. I thought when Soyuncu came on the other day, I thought he was very good against Southampton. And then it probably made Fofana up his game the following one. So, yeah, I think Leicester will do okay. And I think they potentially have learnt from what happened last season. Vardy's very, very important to how they play. But I don't know. I think they've got more match winners or players capable to influence the game now than they probably had this time last season. So it'd be interesting to see how they get on. But yeah, I think they have got nice fixtures, and I think maybe that's why they've looked at Vardy having the operation now.
Yeah,
is that over Christmas they're a little bit tougher with they played Spurs, didn't they? Chelsea, so maybe Man United. So maybe they've looked at now is probably the best spell for him to have the operation. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I think we get away to Everton in game week 20 is a good chance to have a look at them. I wouldn't expect much from them, but after that, they've got, Leeds at home and Fulham, two decent attacking fixtures. They then got Wolves away after that, which at the moment is not a hard fixture either. So I personally think I'm gonna look at them in game week 20. Away to Everton is going to be a tough fixture. They've got most, if not all, of their players back now, and we can see how Leicester are going to play. If they go to Everton and get a result, I really think we can start looking at Leicester in the same bracket. If we're not already, right? But look at them in the same bracket as the City mids, the kind of Spurs mids, because they're just playing really, really well. The one thing I noticed about Maddison, and I've got a graphic which I'll show at the end of this section, but Maddison has been massively overperforming his XG. In the last 4 games, I believe it is, he scored something like 27 points. His XG is only about 13, so that is a bit of a cause for concern. But like we say, let's look at them against Everton. It could be that Maddison plays, in even more of a 10 role or a second strike role or something like that, and it brings the best out of all, and we'll just see. I think the bargain for Leicester, as we've already mentioned, is Justin. I just think he is absolutely phenomenal, and I brought him into my team about 3 weeks ago, and on the first week he gave away the free kick and they conceded, and he went from 9-0, right? But that was a bit of a fluke. But since then he's just looked phenomenal. I can't say it again. Phenomenal.
He's looked good, isn't he?
Phenomenal. And, I think he's an absolute superstar, both in terms of a footballer, both in terms of effort. And I'm so, so happy to have him in my team. What are you? So
you're starting then against Everton?
We'll have a look later when I get to my team. I haven't really organised
so
it because
I'm debating that as well.
Because the thing is, all of us have got really strong benches now, haven't we? So it's quite hard to pick.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough.
Pick the 11. You touched on Everton, so I've written down the return potentially of Calvert-Lewin. So they have got obviously Leicester this week, but after that they've got Newcastle and Leeds, which at the moment are probably the 2 best attacking fixtures I would get in the league at the moment in those 2. So again, we get to look at Everton this week. So that Everton-Leicester game I'll be looking at a lot, in terms of looking at my transfer the week after. I've still got Che bloody Adams. I was 0.1 short to doing Adams to Antonio last week, which is so frustrating. So I couldn't get that done. But there's the potential to look to get in Calvert-Lewin maybe for that run, because he was absolutely on fire. Fantastic fixtures. Richarlison's back. Luca Dean, as you mentioned, he's already got 6 assists this season in something like 10 or 11 games. Absolutely ridiculous stats. Anyone else from Everton kind of interest you at all?
No, just be Calvert-Lewin and Luca Dean, I think.
Another one. So another team with good short-termist fixtures is Palace. And if we are looking to go for the back, I'm gutted because I've had Mitchell basically all season, but I sold him the week before he started back, and he's kind of, has he claimed back his spot now in the team? Is he ahead of Van Aanholt on merit, and will he stay there, do you think? Because he is like the perfect fifth defender.
I think so. And he actually, in the Arsenal game, he looked really attacking and was possibly unlucky to get an assist with some things. But yeah, I don't know if because of the amount of money we've got available, I don't know if you need to go that cheap in defence anymore. I mean, if I'm going to be playing 4 at the back most weeks, I'll probably have, my cheapest defender might be like Kufal, for example. Yeah, so I just think you got the money, and I think what's happened, I think, over teams, whether it's tiredness, mental fatigue, the quick turnaround of games, but there seems to be more clean sheets coming.
Oh.
And even tonight, I could have told you at half time Newcastle weren't going to score, and I think there's less penalties as well. So how many penalties is a little quiz question for you since game week 16? So what's that? So 4 game weeks. How many penalties do you think there've been?
I'm trying to think, but I don't think there's been many because I know like Salah, De Bruyne,
Yeah.
Bruno, Vardy, Kane. I don't think I've had any of they, so I would guess maybe one or two.
No, there's been more than that. So there's been 8 penalties
Right.
in 5 game weeks. If you go back at so 4, and then I think it's 11 in since game week 15.
Yeah.
But I think what's happening now is that at the start we were getting very excited about penalties, but it's just calmed down a little bit.
I've noticed as well that defenders are now diving into blocks with their arms behind their back all the time, aren't they? I've noticed that an awful lot, and even when it's kind of hitting their arm now. There was a penalty, one there against Villa. Yeah, I remember that. I think
there's not been many given for handballs.
No, there hasn't.
I think it started to. So at the start of the season, I think penalties were covering up players, not poor performance from XG. But if you look at over the season, Vardy, of his how many goals has he got? 11 or 12. I think like 6 or 7 have come from penalties.
Yeah.
If you took penalties out, it's a huge impact on his game. Salah, of his 13 goals, 5 have come from penalties. So it's quite a big percentage. I think that's probably helped with taking a few goals out as well.
Yeah. Just to kind of finish off the team, so Fulham are third here, so they've got Brighton, West Brom, Leicester, and West Ham. I do think Areola looks not just a decent keeper. I think he's got the best save percentage in the league, but obviously Fulham look to have really turned the corner in their whole performance and outlook now. And Lookman just looks fantastic, and we're always looking for bargain players, but it looks like a lot of the bargain players I've mentioned there, Mitchell, Areola, Lookman, all these players, we don't actually need them at the moment. W is the thing. Man United, to me, are an interesting one because they've got decent fixtures coming up as well. And there's a couple of names, well, actually, 3 names from Man United who you probably wouldn't have, I wouldn't have thought of a few weeks ago.
Kind of thinking the
top of the list. Yeah. So I've got Pogba, Cavani, and Shaw.
Yeah, I thought you'd say those 3. Yeah. I agree with all 3 of them, and I think Pogba is massively going under the radar. I don't think people feel they can trust that he'll stay in the team. But the one thing I like about Pogba is he's obviously got a lot of quality. And if you go back 2 seasons ago when Ollie's first come in, he had penalties, but he was getting a lot of assists and he was getting into the box late and getting a lot of chances. But he could become a real option. The double up with him and Fernandes, I think particularly with the fixtures, I think I'm probably going to wait and see on it, but I could see, the double up and maybe a United defender could be the way to go. I like Cavani, really like Cavani. But
such a good finisher, and it's just
where movement. It's just his movement. His movement is absolutely brilliant.
It is.
And he just whether he'll start every game, and I think there's other options slightly cheaper that'll play every week.
Yeah, agree. But yeah, and and Shaw at the moment seems to have nailed the left back's spot. He's on some free kicks. He's on corners as well. Looks really dangerous in his own right, and I think he looks superb. Options as well. And just back to Pogba, he should have probably scored against Liverpool as well. But obviously, there's that superb save off Alisson as well. But he should have scored those as well. Yeah. So I think those options are really worth kind of looking at, especially when budget is no issue at the moment, is it?
Well, I think if people are talking about Pogba, taking a little bit away from Fernandes, which I think he probably does, then have both of them. that could be. We're going to have them. Most people will have the money to. So I think that he could be an option.
Yeah, agree. Just a couple of comments in the chat. Bigars Woe 6. Don't know, but I made a -20, but it paid off. Well done.
Fair play. That's great stuff.
Nick Ansell says, how can players change the habit of a lifetime by putting their hands behind their backs when going in for challenges, but still can't remember to not hug each other after scoring? Yeah, Leicester seem to have got it down to a T at the moment in terms of the celebrations and things. But yeah, you you see them now with their arms behind their back, kind of lunging in. It's the only way to kind of do it. And we were kind of joking at the start of the season, saying that's what they're going to have to do, but they are doing it now. And as you say, we've seen a lot few handballs. That handball by Matty Cash, I think, is the first handball in a long time. In a few game weeks that I can remember being given for handball. His arm was obviously high above his head, right? But other than that, I can't think of a penalty that's been given. So the players, were obviously learning, and as you're saying, that is translating into clean sheet points.
Agreed, yeah.
Couple of questions. Daniel Roberts, stick or sell with Chilwell? So we haven't mentioned Chelsea. What do you think about Chilwell?
So looking at their fixtures, I would, prior to their poor performance versus Leicester, I was considering Chelsea players. And I think looking at their fixtures, who they got, Wolves, Burnley, and Sheffield United are three of the next four.
You couldn't ask for a better three.
Yeah, exactly. I definitely wouldn't sell him. I wouldn't sell him. I think there's probably 2 clean sheets in there at least, and you never know. He's good for an attack in return, but I don't see Chelsea. I think as much as I'm not Lampard's biggest fan, as we probably found out, at the start of the season, I don't think Chelsea will completely fall off the route. I think there will be a little bit of a bounce back. So, yeah, I would keep Chilwell. What about you?
Yeah, I just think something has got to give a Chelsea. Either the team have just got to start performing, otherwise, he'll get sacked. And if he gets sacked, they're going to get that new manager bounce, right? So it's kind of one or the other, really. Exactly. They can't just go on playing as they are, not scoring many, conceding every game. Something's got to give. So I would be tempted to hold on. Just a couple of scores. Blues FPL, I got 151 with a last minute -12. He brought in Stones, KDB, Antonio, and Areola went from 260,000 to 65k. Great stuff there. Blues FPL. Mauro, deadline phone call to bring in Stones and Maddison for a -8 paid off. So Mauro is one of my buddies, and we were up chatted into the night on Friday, and I talked him into bringing in Maddison and Stones for a -8, so that worked out well for him. If only I'd have done that in my team, which I didn't, but that was all good. Neil says about selling Zuma, I would personally just hold on. I think after their display against Leicester, I think he's going to have to go back to Zuma, because Rudiger, for that second goal that Maddison scored, I don't know what Rudiger was doing. Great. He was just rooted. I just leave him this week. We should all have strong benches. If he doesn't play, sell him the week after, right? But I'd leave him this week. He's superb still in defence and attack there. Okay, so we now just have a graphic up from our OptaStats tool at fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, and this shows the expected points for the last 4 game weeks. So this doesn't include this evening's match, but it does the other. So it's in totals. Up the top, interestingly enough, so we've said that Bruno has been a bit off form, but in the last 4 game weeks, he has played 5 times, but he's top of the shop with expected points of 30. De Bruyne was second, Stones was third. A certain Ilkay Gundogan was fourth with expected points of 27 from just 4 games. Cancelo fifth. Saka, interestingly, very cheap there in 6th. Then Son, Pogba, Diaz, De Gea, Justin, and Aubameyang. So that's the top 10 or 11 there. Some kind of interesting things noticed there. So even though we think that Bruno isn't performing as well, so he has scored 26 points in that time. His XG is still 34, so he's still showing the signs. If anyone's thinking of getting rid of Bruno, obviously he's captain material this week, right? I just think you just leave him in. He's just one of those. We've done it all season.
Oh, I don't think a single person
leave him in your team. Leave him in your team. Gundogan for me, right? So he's up to 4th. I actually think he's been incredibly unlucky as well. Watching the games, obviously watching with an added interest, after I kind of mentioned a few weeks ago, how he hasn't got more goals and assists in this last 3 or 4 game weeks is beyond me. I think he's been absolutely fantastic, and he even came on the pitch earlier. All right, it's away to Cheltenham in the FA Cup, right? came on the pitch, got an assist. You know, he's just up there, and it'd be interesting to see what happens now. De Bruyne is out. I think they will probably try, you know, a few different things. I think Jesus is just so out of sorts. You know, he's obviously, you know, he's obviously not an awful footballer, but he's massively out of sorts. I'm wondering whether they, you know, could give an odd game to Gundogan in that number 9 role, which is obviously mentioned previously. But as long as he stays fairly advanced, which I think I think he will. I just think he's just such a fantastic option. Another one up there, as we've mentioned already, is Luke Shaw. So he's only 4.8 million. Expected points of 23.5. Only scored 19, but you know, I think he's a good one there as well. And Barnes and Foden. So you know, we haven't mentioned the legend Phil Foden for a while. I don't know if you watched the match earlier in the FA Cup. He nearly scored a goal, right? And if he'd have scored it, it would have probably been.
But he took on half the team.
He took on 7 players, right? Yeah. And if he'd have scored it, it would have probably been the best ever FA Cup goal, eclipsing Giggs' by an absolute mile. But he's a man in form. You know, he's looking superb.
Yeah, I think Foden's a better option than Gundogan, personally.
Ooh, we'll have a bit of an argument over that later.
Yeah, you like both of them, don't you?
I do like both, but it's who to pick.
Picking your favourite child, that is, isn't it?
It is. You're right.
I'll tell you the reason I do.
Go on.
With Gundogan, I think over the last, since game week 13, I think it is, he's got 5 and 7. He's been brilliant. And, you know, I think from a goal threat, he's had a lot of goal threat. He's not had much assist threat. That could change. But over his career, if you look at his career stats, he's never, I think most he's scored in a season is 7 or something. It's not much, is it? And it makes me think, and if you look at his XG per 90, when you compare them to the other City players, there's a lot ahead of him. And I don't know, is this just a good spell for him? He's not at the level that Silva was last season in terms of XG per 90 as well, or XA per 90. He's off both of those. So I think he's incredible value and he's a good option. So let me just say that firstly. But with Foden, if you look at the goals and assists per start, or in fact, in his career, even off the bench last season, I think Foden is more feast and famine, definitely. And I think but I think with how our squads are set up at the moment, I think he's a better option because you start him, or you just basically, you gamble on pet roulette. If he's played 120 minutes in the FA Cup and they're playing on a Tuesday night, you know, they've gone to extra time, you think, okay, I'll bench him for this one. But I think maybe just start him for everyone. If you've got a good sub, someone like Souček or whoever it would be, or, you know, your 5th defender or 3rd striker, I don't know. I think he's a more fun option because he's watching it. He's just a fun. He's just watching him as well. There's certain players. Grealish is one. Love watching him. Son, love watching him. But Foden is just something else. And I think that he got more of the like you just talked about. He's got more of the exciting factor. I think they are both good options. I think Gundogan's the boring, steady, will get you 6, you know, might 8 points. But I think Foden's got more double-digit hauls in him. That's what I think he's much more exciting.
Well, so at the moment in my team, I've only got KDB and Diaz. So I'm kind of set of bringing in Gundogan and Cancelo, but I do wonder whether I'd have a bit more fun with Gundogan and Foden. I probably won't do it. But
I think Cancelo, I must admit, you can't really take tonight's match because of who they were playing. But I mean, Cancelo come on, 3 key passes. I think if you look at the stats, I think there's an argument to go Cancelo and Foden. The downside to both is the rotation. Yeah. But I actually think we're in a bit of a lucky because of how strong we can have our benches and us coming out of bench boost as well. Yeah. I think it's just more fun taking the gamble. I was considering between Stones and Cancelo. If I was going to bring one in, you think, Stones might be safer and all of that. But I think Cancelo at the moment,
he's been so unfortunate to return.
He was unlucky against Villa.
Unbelievable.
Very unlucky. And I think he's quite key to how they play. And I think if he gets a bench in, if he comes on, he could do something. And if he doesn't come on, then you're just going to get your sub. So, Yeah, I think at the moment, I just think Gundogan. I think he's boring, but I just think I
Boring.
don't. Well, I just don't think there's huge upside from
I
it in
do. I
comparison
think he's been so.
to
I
Foden.
just think he's so unlucky. He's
Has he
pulled
though?
out
Look,
saves every game on the keeper. He's on penalties. He just looks. I just think he looks fantastic.
he does look good. He does look good, but I'm not saying he is a bad option at all. The two downsides to me is he, out of a lot of the City players, he's never done it historically. He's not put a 10 goal, 5 assist
But
season
he's
in him.
never played in the position he is now either.
But he has
He's
though.
always played that number 6 role.
That's he has played, particularly when he was at Borussia Dortmund. He has played more advanced, and his actual record when he's playing as technically we've called it a midfield centre midfielder, it is better than when he plays in defensive mid. But I just think there's more upside to Foden, and I think that I think Gundogan will do well. But the thing is, we've got to choose, and his value is incredible. You've just got to choose between them, and I just think Foden's more fun. And it will. I've obviously owned Foden this season. I think you have too. You do have that. Oh, I've got to check the team and all that. So if you go with Foden, that's the downside.
There is that, and obviously he's just played 90 odd minutes in the FA Cup right as well, which is obviously a bit of a concern. Couple of comments in the chat. Jerome Hughes, never thought we'd have Adam convincing Fergie that Foden is the better City option now. Just to say as well that Foden is Manchester City's top scorer this season as well, which I find that an unreal kind of stat as well. And Andres Milano, Man City are struggling to score overall. Gundo provides the value and starter spot. Foden doesn't start enough for the same price as other 6 million strikers. You could go Antonio, Bamford, Watkins instead. Probably fair enough. A couple of points on Mahrez. I mean, I don't know what's happened to Mahrez. He doesn't even look dangerous anymore, does he? He kind of had that one-on-one earlier, which he blasted straight at the keeper, which is a bit, disappointing. And a couple of questions around Cancelo for captain. We'll touch on the captaincy later as well. I've just brought up a view now of our Opta stats. It's the same stats as last time, but it's per appearance. And this is interesting, right? Because everyone's saying, Son and Kane, they only score one goal, go 1-0, they're not worth it. Son and Kane per appearance in the last 4 game weeks both have number 1 and 2, the highest expected points in the whole game. So Heung-min Son in the last 3 appearances has got expected points of 8.2, and Harry Kane has got expected points of 7.4. We've then got De Bruyne, Stones, Aurier, Gundogan, Fernandes, Cancelo, Bogle in there kind of pointed out as interesting one there. So he's obviously 4.3 million. He's obviously only in the team at the moment, probably because of injury, but he's had expected points of over 6 per match for the last 3 he's played. Saka, Tierney, Diaz, Justin, etc., etc. But I found those Son and Kane stats really interesting. When you kind of filter by appearance, they're still the highest expected point scorers in the whole game in the last 4 game weeks. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I don't think you can knock Son or Kane. I think when you look at them over the last, I think in the last 10 matches, they've both got, I think Kane's got 5 goals, 3 assists. Son's got 4 of each. They're just consistent, and Spurs score it. They're going to be involved. Can't argue. I think Son for me. I think if you don't have Son and you've got De Bruyne, it's just a no-brainer, because I think any other move is thinking too hard on it. That's what, because even though you might have City with slightly better fixtures, Son is nailed, so you get the tick there. He scored against Liverpool, Arsenal, United, this City this season, so he can score against anybody. And he's got the pedigree as well, which I do think is important, because that gives you the confidence they can sustain it over a longer period of time. So, yeah. And I think Kane, I wouldn't be against the double up, because Kane's impressed me. I think just his performance, how he's kept so consistent. He had a spell not too long ago where he went 3 or 4 games without scoring, but excluding that, he's just been exceptional. And I think his all-round play, he's in double figures for goals and assists. Yeah, I think it's Spurs double up with the fact that we'll have a little bit more money without De Bruyne. I think is completely valid at the moment.
Okay, and our final graphic, just while we're on this section, so we've had a lot of questions in the chat actually, and there's it's a really big question: which midfielder to downgrade to. What we've got now is a graphic from the Fantasy Football Hub comparison tool, which shows Gundogan, who's obviously been in really good form against Maddison, who's obviously been in really good form as well. Their last 4 matches and their stats. So while their points are fairly similar, Gundogan has got 30 points in his last 4 matches. Maddison's got 27. For those who can see the spider graph and the graphic, Gundogan outscores Maddison and significantly outscores Maddison in nearly every key stat there. So in terms of expected points, expected goals, big chances, shots in the box, shots on target, shots overall, through balls and final third passes, and not just by a few. He's got nearly double all those of Maddison in the last 4 game weeks. The only thing that Maddison has got better than Gundogan are key passes and crosses. So for anyone kind of wondering, I suppose why I'm so big on Gundogan and why he's so popular, that graphic for me for the last 4 really does kind of say it there. And I touched on it earlier. The expected point as well. So Madigan? Who's Madigan? Flipping heck. Maddison's expected points is probably roughly half of what he scored, whereas Gundogan is kind of matching what's expected as well. Any thoughts there, Adam, on Maddison, I suppose, and on Gundogan versus Maddison, or who is the best midfielder to grow, to downgrade down to, apart from Son, you've mentioned obviously Son already.
I think there's loads of good options, and for me, my plan is before I make that particular move to midfielders, let's say 7.5 million and below, I think I'm going to wait a week because I think there's loads of options. I think Villa have got some good options as well. Grealish, Traore potentially has looked good over the last few. I mean, he's touched at times is exceptional. So great goal again tonight. So I think Arsenal, Saka's look good. A lot of people seem to have completely forgot him. I think Leicester have got 2 good options in Maddison and Barnes. I probably slightly prefer Maddison to Barnes. No, sorry, Barnes to Maddison. I meant to say. Yeah, probably prefer. I think City. I think with City they've got loads of good options. I think we've only really talked about Foden and Gundogan. Bernardo Silva will be an interesting one because even though he's frustrating, he's the sort of player that could put a little bit of form in, and I think so it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see what happens with City. I think for me with City, I think there's more points in the defence than potentially the attack, or at least you know where the points are going to come from. And the thing you've got to bear in mind is that City, they might spread the goals around as well. So you've got to predict who's going to be in it, and that is quite tough with City, I think. So who else is there? Anybody but Rafinha.
Yeah, he's been a bit disappointing, hasn't he?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. You might see James Rodriguez come back into things.
Yeah, how about you?
As well. So I think there's a lot of good options around at that price.
We've had a few questions in the chat just around Salah, and what to do with Salah. So we did mention it right at the start. So obviously he hasn't scored in 5, right? But he's still taking shots. Liverpool are still taking shots. He's still on penalties. Had a good rest now as well. I think that if you get rid of Salah, you'll find it very hard to get him back. He's obviously the most expensive player in the game as well. He's also a really good captain option for game week 22. My thoughts are I would just hold on to Salah. I don't see any reason to sell him because you can't really spread the funds around if you wanted to anyway. Anything else to add on that?
No. I think if you felt Mane looked better out of the two, you could switch to him. But if I'm being honest, I just don't see. I think you just got to keep Salah.
Yeah.
I think it might have been slightly different had De Bruyne not got injured, and then you thought, well, actually, I haven't got Son. There might have been an obvious move, but unless you're going to want to have 11 million in the bank or something stupid, I just don't see it. And Salah's too good a player, even though he might not be in his best form, even though he probably is slightly in decline in terms of his peak level at Liverpool. He's still going to get you. He's still going to get points. He's still a good captain option, and for the Brighton game in particular. So, yeah, I think and most people have probably got other issues to sort as well. So, I think you're in a lucky position if you've got a luxury transfer to look
take
at
out Salah. Agree.
Yeah.